An Alabama Supreme Court ruling has declared embryos are children, regardless of their location, and entitled to all legal protections just as a fetus in the womb. The opinion comes after a 2022 suit filed by 3 couples who claim a patient at Mobile Infirmary destroyed their embryos.
Okay, what had happened was, in December of 2020, a patient, which is, I think is just dumb for this patient, it went through an unsecured door in the hospital. And I guess they stumbled upon the IVF, or in vitro fertilization, cryogenic chamber, like a very cold room. And stored in that room were, or I would assume, petri dishes or some kind of container with embryos. Embryos, for you MAGA idiots, are when doctors take the eggs from a woman and the sperm from a man, put them together in a dish in a lab, wait for them to come together, and once they have the mechanisms for what can become a baby, they freeze it and put it in a room to be used at a later date. I'm sorry I couldn't find a freezer video for you, but I'm pretty sure you get the idea of what a freezer may look like. Anyway, the patient went into that room, started messing around with the dishes, got freeze burned because it's very cold in there, and dropped a few of the dishes. Well, naturally, the parents that owned those dishes sued, claiming that the staff was negligent and that the person that destroyed the dishes actually killed their children. And they lost. They lost because state law doesn't consider an embryo a child. The parents in the case went all the way to the Alabama Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided this: extrauterine children, or unborn children located outside of a biological uterus at the time they are killed, are children, and they are covered under the state's wrongful death of a minor law, which could now mean any embryo, for whatever reason, does not make it in that cryogenic chamber, is a living child, and the person or people, doctors and nurses or whoever controlled the facility that are in charge of that room at the time, can be charged with killing a child if the embryos don't make it out of that chamber. Yeah. Now, some people feel like this is going to cause a major controversy in Alabama because a lot of people, businesses and companies that deal with in vitro fertilization are not going to want to do the process because they feel like if an embryo doesn't make it, they can be held liable. So a lot of those companies are just not going to deal with it. But then there are other people that feel like, okay, we got this law, but
who would say that somebody who drops a dish that has the embryos is killing somebody? Is this like somebody plotting to kill someone, and etc., etc.? Of course not.
To that doctor, I say this: you're talking about Alabama, sir. What they just did was very unprecedented. They just said, now, mind you, we already got these abortion laws that are going back and forth in the Supreme Court and going back and forth in certain states. But now you got Alabama who's doing something totally unique. They're saying that an embryo inside or outside the womb is a living child, pretty much going past any kind of abortion ban that any state can do. So if a state goes out and says, no abortions past 6 weeks, or no abortions past 4 weeks, or no abortion past 18 weeks, the Alabama Supreme Court just said an embryo inside or outside the womb is a living, viable child, because a lot of people believe that life starts at conception. That only means that it can go further. And it's going to get to a point where if a woman has her cycle and releases an egg, and when a male kid, high school or college, do what they do, and it doesn't create a child, they can be potentially committing murder. It sounds extreme, but look at where we are now. What do you think?